so much today, allegations from both parties and the SNP actually about who is to blame. Just tell us, why do you think, Malcolm, that the Speaker made that decision? What do you think his real motivations were?
Well, the Speaker is, of course, formerly a Labour Member of Parliament, but from the moment he became Speaker, he renounced all links with political parties, and I believe he genuinely, like all Speakers, sees himself as impartial. He was under huge pressure from Keir Starmer. We know that. They had a meeting just before he made his original announcement, and it was a foolish announcement. It was the wrong announcement, and I think he now recognizes that, because he should have understood that the main reason why Starmer wanted the announcement that was made was to avoid the Labour Party showing its internal divisions, because they had cobbled together wording that all the Labour MPs would be able to support. So the Speaker knew that. It was a foolish mistake. He's apologised, and it shouldn't have happened.
Is his position, Sir Malcolm, and welcome to the show, is his position untenable after yesterday? I mean, Bercow had 23 votes, people voting against him in a confidence thing. He was thrown out. Sir Lindsay Hoyle, I mean, Quentin Lett's the front of the Mail today on a dramatic day. Mr Speaker, spectacularly self-destructed. Are you somebody who would say it's time for him to go, or will he ride this storm out?
I wouldn't say that. Look, I'm not in the House of Commons, so I don't have a direct role here. I don't have a direct role here. But I think Lindsay Hoyle, unlike John Bercow, has been widely respected as a speaker until yesterday. Most of the decisions he's made have been well received, and he's seen as a decent guy. So he's made a foolish mistake. He has apologised for it, and I don't think that is a resigning issue, unless it was to be repeated on several occasions.
And he did make...
The comparisons with Bercow just don't wash.
He did make a very heartfelt, what looked like emotional apology. John, look, the Labour Party, ultimately, they've got their way. They got the vote on the amendment that they wanted, whether that was because they applied lots of pressure on the Speaker or not. A lot of that is an allegation. But at what cost, John? Because the chaos means the public maybe are looking and say, this is such a serious issue. And in what's actually happened is the situation in Gaza has become, you know, political kickabout.
Yeah, look, the first thing I want to say is it's a great pleasure to be on the show with my former MP, Malcolm Rifkind. When I lived in Edinburgh, he was my Conservative MP, but he was a great Member of Parliament for his locality. And on this, I think there's a connection, which is we want, on an issue of such massive global importance and such massive humanitarian importance, for the House of Commons and MPs to find some way to speak in one voice. I would much rather have seen the Labour Party, the Tory Party and the SNP agreeing words that all three sides could come together with, so that then, you know, it comes to something when the Prince of Wales is speaking more sense than the House of Commons.
You know, the truth is,
something
John,
for me to say that.
No, I know. The truth of the matter is, and I want to put this to Sir Malcolm, who, as an ex-Foreign Secretary, I hope would have a view. I said this all morning. It's not... It's from the heart. It was embarrassing on the world stage yesterday. And I don't think some politicians truly understand, Sir Malcolm, that the normal everyday people, the length and breadth of this country, are fed up by what they see as a decrease in values and standards. And I'm telling you that many people in this country will have woken up this morning and it will have turned them further off from politics. And that, for me, is the real danger, that people become disenfranchised because what they see is petty squabbling. And what the world must have thought, Sir Malcolm, is another issue.
Well, I hear what you say, and there's a lot of truth in what you say. What was seen yesterday will not have impressed people, and they would have been right to be highly critical. But do please bear in mind that the whole essence of the House of Commons and Parliament in any democracy is that they are real parliaments. There are real emotions. People get very angry on both sides of the chamber, and they sometimes misbehave. That does happen. But do consider, and I invite all the critics to comment on this, the alternative is to have something like the Chinese parliament or the Russian Duma, so-called parliament, where nobody is allowed to disagree. Everybody just puts their hand up and says, I support the government. And that is a phony parliament. So when you have a real parliament, yes, it will sometimes behave badly. But think of all the other occasions when it speaks for the nation in the way that the government of the day doesn't like and sometimes has to change its policy because of the way Parliament has criticized them from both sides of the chamber, and that has happened very often. So if you want a real parliament, it's most of the time it is very creditable. Some of the time it badly misbehaves. But that is something I prefer to the alternative in Moscow and Beijing.
Yeah.
So, Malcolm, though, there are some issues or some topics that maybe, as John was saying, look, could we imagine a situation where those three parties, Labour, the Conservatives and the SNP, said, this is bigger than our internal infighting. Let's not use it as an opportunity to sort of get our elbows out and come up with something. How impactful would it be if those parties could do something like that?
Well, you're right, and that does occasionally happen, and it's good when it does happen if it's genuine. But remember, the real issue about this question of the ceasefire in Gaza, everybody wants at some stage a ceasefire. Of course, that is right. But this whole crisis began with a massacre in Israel by Hamas of 1,000 or 1,200 Israelis. And Hamas, sadly, at this moment, as we speak, are saying publicly that if they had the chance, they would do it again. And you cannot expect the Israelis to have a ceasefire, which is one-sided. Hamas have to release the hostages and promise they will not repeat that kind of behavior and mean it. And that is the circumstance in which a ceasefire is possible. So I'm not defending the Israelis. A lot of what they've done I dislike very, very much, the way they've done it. But they have a point when they say this conflict began by a massacre by Hamas. The ceasefire is the right thing to have when the hostages are released and Hamas either can't or agree never to repeat that kind of behavior.